What's going on YouTube? I am Rainier Will Pussy Games RPG. I wanted to talk some NBA. A team that has been on my mind recently are the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs recently won a game to end their 16-game losing streak. They broke it after they beat the Utah Jazz 102-94. The purpose of this video is not to talk about the losing streak, but to talk about what the Spurs have. I really like the San Antonio Spurs, and I really like the direction in which they're going. I feel like that their record is not indicative of what potential that they have. If anything, this losing season will be a really good boost for next year and the upcoming future in San Antonio. Ever since the Spurs dynasty ended when Tony Parker and Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili retiring, the Spurs have been trying to make different things work. The Spurs had DeJounte Murray on the team, and DeJounte Murray was a really good player. The thing was that DeJounte Murray was on this team and he was getting a little bit older. He had 6 years on this team. He was an all-star and the steals leader in 2022. He averaged 21 points and 8.3 boards and 9.2 dimes with 2 steals. But the thing was that the team really wasn't heading in the right direction. They were still losing games. They had DeMar DeRozan, who they had gotten after trading away Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard was injured for a lot of time during his final years with the Spurs. DeMar DeRozan and DeJounte Murray weren't able to get it done. They weren't able to even really be much of a play-in team. And DeMar DeRozan really didn't end up staying with the team, and DeJounte Murray ended up getting traded over to the Atlanta Hawks. This was a really good step in the right direction for San Antonio. It was great because DeJounte Murray got traded for a lot of nice picks. The San Antonio Spurs got a lot of first-round draft selections for him. The Spurs finished 34-48 in the Western Conference and lost in the play-in tournament to the New Orleans Pelicans, and the season was over. The Spurs roster at this point just didn't look like it was going in an upward trend. That's why they traded DeJounte Murray. The Spurs ran into some really bad luck earlier in the season because Josh Primo, who was their 12th overall pick, was released by the team. Josh Primo was a young player who could have done some great work. He was waived by the Spurs on October 28, 2022. It's very uncommon to see a first-round pick get released by a team, especially if it's just the second year in the league. He was waived by the team because of indecent exposure allegations, and the Spurs really took an L with this loss. I am really happy with the jobs that the Spurs did in the last draft. The San Antonio Spurs drafted Jeremy Sohan with the 9th overall pick. This guy is going to be a star for the Spurs one day. He's only 19 years old and he has a really nice style of play. This brother has unlimited potential. Jeremy Sohan this season is averaging 10.6 points and 5.1 boards. These last few games, he's been doing pretty damn good. He had 22 points and 6 rebounds against the Jazz. Then in another match against the Jazz, he had 13 points and 6 boards and 6 dimes. And then in a match against the Indiana Pacers, he had 22 points, 13 boards, and 3 assists. A double-double. Sohan has been doing a really great job for the Spurs, and he's been contributing in various different ways. He's getting people involved. He's getting the rebound. I feel like with time and experience, Jeremy Sohan is going to develop and become so much better. Jeremy Sohan was a bad free throw shooter earlier in the season. He's been working with the Spurs coach, and he adopted a brand new style of shooting a free throw. He's been shooting free throws one-handed now. His free throw percentage jumped from bad to great. And, that's really amazing for a player like him. He has one of the most unique styles in the NBA. I love it. With the 9th overall pick, they did really great in getting Jeremy Sohan. The San Antonio Spurs also drafted Malachi Branham out of Ohio State with the 20th overall pick in the first round. Malachi Branham is only 19 as well, and he's averaging 9.3 points, and he's showing that he's a great scorer and a player who should start. In an overtime loss against the Detroit Pistons on February 10th, he had 27 points. Also had 23 points against the Hornets about 5 days later on February 15th. And then the game against the Dallas Mavericks in a 142-116 loss was a bit of a blowout. But he had 23 points along with 5 dimes. They have Jeremy Sohan, and now they have Malachi Branham. Malachi Branham is a player who can score, who can play great, who can assist. These are young players who I feel will develop into stars. The San Antonio Spurs also have Keldon Johnson as the best player on their team. Keldon Johnson is awesome. He's only 23 years old. He was drafted out of the University of Kentucky with the 29th overall pick. Keldon Johnson this year is averaging 21.8 points, shooting 45% from the field. The Spurs locked him up for a steal. 4-year, $80 million contract extension with the Spurs. They locked up an all-star caliber player for cheap. Keldon has been getting better every single year. His first year, he wasn't really averaging a lot of points, 9.1 points. And his second year, he had 12.8 points. And then the very next year after that, 17.1 points. And now he's averaging 22 this year. He's been really working hard and really worked his way into the starting lineup. And Greg Popovich, who is sensational at drafting talented players, is doing a great job in developing Keldon Johnson. Keldon Johnson is ready to be an all-star next year. Only time will tell, but I love Keldon Johnson. I also really love Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell is in the same boat as Keldon Johnson. He started off the bench and gradually got better each and every single year. His first year, he had 5.5 points and 4.3 rebounds, and his minutes started going up every single year. He's averaged 12.3 points and 4.3 boards, and now coming into this year, he's averaging 19.4 points. He's only a year younger than Keldon Johnson at 22 years old. They have a really young player in Devin Vassell. He can continue to get better and ball. And while the Spurs are losing a lot of games, it's just that their roster isn't complete. There are a few changes that they should probably make. One thing that the Spurs really should do is they really need to get a new center. They have players like Gorgui Dieng and Hem Birch and Zach Collins on the team. They traded away Jakob Poeltl to the Raptors earlier in the season. They got Hem Birch back. Gorgui Dieng might be on his way out of the league. He doesn't play much minutes. Hem Birch is a player who can't really ball. And Zach Collins, he's not going to be able to give you more than like 10 points in a game. Right now, the Spurs are 16-47, and they're 14th in the West. They have all these young talented players, and they really need to add another center on this team. Imagine if they could get really lucky and get a top pick, the #1 overall pick, and get Victor Wembanyama in the draft. The San Antonio Spurs would be really fortunate to get Victor. If they can get Victor, it would be like a new Tim Duncan-like era. The San Antonio Spurs would be great for years to come. They have Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, these up-and-coming stars, Blake Wesley, Jeremy Sohan, and Malachi Branham. And if they can add a generational superstar and tall shooter like they say Victor Wembanyama is, they would have a roster that is ready to go. The San Antonio Spurs are a team that deserves the #1 pick. Greg Popovich and the Spurs have tried to develop a team and is finding a way to develop a team years now. They need this top pick. They didn't go and tank a shit ton like a lot of these other teams did. The Rockets are the only team with a worse record in the West, and they're always in the top draft. They had Jalen Green, they got Jabari Smith, and now they have Elfrid Sengun. Jalen Green needs to worry about doing more defensively and trying to become that dude in Houston, because the Houston Rockets are just god-awful, despite being in the draft so many times. The Pistons already had the #1 pick, and they drafted Cade Cunningham, and he's been out with for the year, and they also added James Wiseman to the team, and so it's just like I really feel like the Pistons don't deserve the #1 pick. They should really try and look into a different direction with their coach. The Hornets are probably second when it comes to deserving a top pick, but they don't deserve the top pick more than the Spurs do. The Spurs deserve this pick. Despite being 16-47, this team is really heading in a great direction. They have great players and assets. They got great picks, and I feel like Victor Wembanyama would have the best career if he was a Spur. I really want the San Antonio Spurs to get this pick, and I hope that they can get lucky in this draft and win the lottery. Let's go Spurs!